Hey there, my dearest political scientists of the comparative sort. I hope you're ready to jump right on into our next unit of study, which is Iran. Now, before we begin, today is a very special day of the year. It is March 15th. Do any of you know what that means?
Beware the Ides of March.
No.
Yes. Beware the Ides of March. Poor Caesar. R.I.P. my mans. Now, I'm not sure how many Roman history or Shakespearean references I made about the Ides of March today, but this is my last one, I promise. By the way, guys, I know you're probably feeling a little stressed out. Spring break is upon us and you have so much to do, and you probably feel something a little bit like this. But just hang in there, we'll get there together, okay? I promise. Okay, should we get this party started or what? Okay everyone, we are officially moving forward with Iran, so welcome to video number 3. Not only are we beginning to permanently move back east on our final leg of our comparative world tour as we enter Iran, but we are also entering a new category of political systems. So just to recap, we have already explored the UK as an advanced democracy, we have visited Russia as a post-communist country, and China as a communist country. And now we will begin to study the newly industrializing and less developed countries, beginning with Iran, which is categorized as a newly industrializing country. Now, usually newly industrializing countries are often categorized as nations that have experienced both economic growth and have democratized. However, specifically for Iran, it means that the nation has partially industrialized, however it has not democratized. It is still considered a newly industrialized country still. Now, as always, it's always helpful to get a good idea of exactly where the country is that we're speaking of. So looking at Iran on the map, its location and geography deeply affect every aspect of its economic and political structure, perhaps more so than any other country we have studied thus far. And we will certainly throughout the unit focus on the geopolitics of Iran, but for now we will focus on its deep and complex history. As previously stated, tracing back Iran's history is extremely complex and often misinterpreted, especially in the West, on topics such as the role of Islam today. Iran's history can be broken down into 4 major eras of political change: the Safavids, the Qajars, the Pahlavis, and the Islamic Revolution and Republic of Iran. The area in which Iran is currently located was known for centuries as the Persian Empire, until a series of conquests by outside groups transformed political leadership several times dating back to the 7th century. But to start, we will begin our journey at the turn of the 16th century. Before this time, there was not much political unity within Iran, so if we are looking at the historical context of modern-day Iran, we will begin in 1501 with the Safavid Empire. The Safavids are most notable for establishing Shiaism as the official religion of the nation. Even though a large majority of Muslims today are Sunni Muslims, about 90% of Iranians identify as Shiite Muslims. Now, I know some of you may be confused or need a little bit of clarification on exactly what the major divide within Islam means. So I have this short clip explaining the difference between Sunni and Shiite Muslims. Enjoy.
The terms Sunnis and Shiites get thrown around a lot when discussing Middle Eastern conflicts. And sometimes it's useful, but most of the time it feels like it's just shorthand for these people hate each other. But with over 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, there's no way they can all be involved in some Hatfields and McCoy-style blood feud. So what's really going on here? Well, first of all, not all Sunnis and Shiites are at war with each other. There are tons of places where they coexist peacefully, like the United Arab Emirates, or Dearborn, Michigan, for example. It's also worth noting that their religions aren't diametrically opposed. In fact, the Sunni-Shiite conflict isn't even really about religion, it's about power. Originally, Muslims were all one group unified under the Prophet Muhammad. Then, in the year 632, Muhammad died, and Muslims split off into 2 separate groups. The Sunnis wanted Muhammad's successor to be chosen by his community of followers, while the Shiites wanted the leadership to stay within the Prophet's family. The Sunnis were in the majority, so they chose their new leader to be the Caliph, which is basically the head of state. The Shiites did not recognize this new leader, and instead, they chose Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali, as their new imam, which also basically means head of state. That was the main source of divide, and from there, things really only got worse.
So, as the clip had stated, because Muhammad died without an heir determined, the two groups disagreed on who the next leader should be. That conflict obviously carries through and still impacts politics and Islam worldwide today. Now, switching back to the Safavid Empire, the Safavids ruled over Iran for a few hundred years, believing that the rightful leaders of Islam were the descendants of Ali, who was Muhammad's son-in-law. These descendants were called imams. Shiites believed that the 12th imam, known as the hidden imam, disappeared and serves as a messiah-like figure who will return one day. Until then, though, the leaders of Iran took the place as the leaders of Islam as well. These Safavid leaders also tolerated other religions, specifically monotheistic religions whom they referred to as people of the book, or religions that followed a book of scripture similar to the Quran. But as far as political rule goes, the Safavids were very limited in both their economic resources and production and ability to rule. Their capital city of Isfahan was not close in proximity to water ports, and they mainly relied on weaker local rulers to keep order of the people. This decentralization of power ultimately led to the Safavids' demise by 1722. The overthrow of the Safavid dynasty is marked by the invasion of Afghan tribes and a long period of disorganization and chaos until the area was conquered again by the next dynastic leaders, the Qajars, in 1794. The Qajars kept Shi'ism as the official religion, however they moved the capital of Iran to Tehran, where it remains today. Fun fact. The Qajars' rule had sparked the beginning of secularization, or a separation of religion and state. And, unlike the Safavids, the Qajars did not claim legitimacy via the 12 imams. But as the 19th century inched closer, the Qajars' rule marked a decline of political and economic control. Throughout the age of European imperialism, Iran had lost land to both Russia and Britain, who seek both access to water and oil drilling rights. Over time, Iran had driven up its debt to other nations and was forced to borrow large sums of money from both foreign countries and its own people. Because of this, the Constitutional Revolution of 1905 to 1909 took place, in which middle-class citizens demanded a constitution from the Shah. By 1906, a new constitution was actually drafted and included several democratic elements, such as direct elections, a separation of powers, laws created by a legislature, popular sovereignty, and a Bill of Rights. Because the Constitution called for a legislature, they formed the legislative body called the Majlis, which wrote and passed bills and also controlled cabinet members. Still, Shi'ism remained the religion of the state, and a guardian council, or a group of clerics, was created that still had the power to veto legislation passed by the Majlis. This seemingly organization and shift in political structure did not help Iran escape its economic hardships. After World War I had ended, the Qajars soon fell out of power in Iran as the Pahlavis emerged around 1925. The self-proclaimed Raza Shah of the Pahlavis revoked the power of the Majlis and recentered power back to himself with authoritarian rule, facing party opposition and eventually fleeing the country for a multitude of reasons. As Raza Shah left, his son Mohammad Raza Shah took control, but when Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh increased his own power, the Shah was forced to leave the country. Mossadegh, however, was soon overthrown and the Shah's rule was restored. By this time, Iran had also emerged as a one-industry reliant nation on oil exports. Several large companies and industries overall were run by the state, including banks, radio and television networks, and the National Iranian Oil Company. In addition, the military grew, a central bureaucracy emerged, and courts came to follow a rule of law and adopt a more European justice code. In 1963, reforms called the White Revolution were instituted by the Mohammad Raza Shah. And no, I'm not referring to Donald Trump's idea of how to make America great again. But these Iranian reforms dealt with land reform and extending political and social rights to women. Amidst these reforms, the Shah also took opportunity to build his own personal wealth, exhibiting the corruptive manner of the Iranian government. Throughout all of this, the U.S. remained supportive of the Shah, inciting much of the opposition to the United States from those who opposed the Shah's leadership in Iran. People felt that the Shah's relations to the U.S. went against the strong sense of nationalism many Iranians felt. In addition to this, Iranians felt that the Shah was a totalitarian leader and he secularized the state too quickly, creating a divide between those who supported more pro-Western relations and those who supported a more traditional Iran. This brings us up to our last and current era of Iranian history, the Islamic Revolution and the establishment of the Republic of Iran. When we look at it closely, several things stand out about the Iranian Revolution. Well, a lot of things. But there are several key details that are very unique to this revolution. The 1979 Iranian Revolution involved religion. Think back to revolutions in Russia and China. How are they different from Iran? What political, economic, and historical factors play a big role in each to influence their outcomes? Just some questions to think about. In addition, the Islamic Revolution is the only one in the world to have established a theocracy thereafter, where religious leaders rule within the government. Now, as far as how it started, economic, cultural, and political reasons gave way to the revolution of 1979. One, the price of oil went down about 10%, while the price for consumer goods went up. And second, U.S. pressure on Iran to adhere to higher human rights standards and loosen up control of the Shah's opposition, which allowed more people to openly speak out and begin to protest. This indeed soured relations between the two states for a while as well. As the revolution continued on for months, the Shah left the country. In April 1979, Iran held a national referendum and the people voted to establish an Islamic Republic. Once the republic was established and the constitution was written up by a group of clerics called the Assembly of Religious Experts, the Ayatollah Khomeini took leadership and aimed to remove any trace of secularism and westernization. Shia leaders also began a cultural revolution in which they aimed to remove all secular and Western thoughts, ideas, and education, and remove all people who represented those ideas and replace them with those who had supported the new regime. From then on, the Islamic Revolution and establishment of the new regime has really impacted every facet of Iran's political structure and relationships. We will certainly see this exhibited as we dig deeper in our unit. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening. This has been yet another Team Money production. Until next time, I'm Ms. Schaefer. Peace out.